Hello and welcome back to Cosmic Alignment Lab podcast. I'm Ishita, your host and also the founder of the Cosmic Touch community, which is a community of creative changemakers. And today we have with us Elisabeth Andrews. She is a dear friend and she also was the author of 50 Ways to Say No, which is a really cool book about boundaries. And she calls her niche Woo for the Well Educated, which is why this episode is also called Woo for the Well Educated. I'm very excited to unpack all of this with you, Elisabeth.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Amazing. So, a little bit about her. So, she brings a practical approach to helping brainy people make the most of data capabilities and also listen to their bodies and become powerful communicators. So she has 2 decades in high stakes science writing and governance consulting, and she understands the pressure of peer review, cross sector partnerships, and shifting funding landscapes. And she's also a yoga teacher, wellness educator, and she's also an avid journaler. So, today our conversation is going to be all about tools that you can use as well as her journey, figuring out how to kind of use these tools. So, Elizabeth, let's get into it.
Ready.
So, tell us about your deconditioning story going, from hustle culture and the fast paced life and career obsessed kind of thing that we're raised into, and more towards, your journaling practices and really listening to who you truly are.
So I fell from grace in spectacular fashion very early, which I recommend to one and all because there is no faster ticket to freedom. Backstory. I was a math nerd in high school, the only freshman taking AP calculus, and I went to Stanford, and that all, went well. I tested well. I was graduating with high honors and took off on a road trip and came to in a Denny's in Oklahoma, realizing I had no idea what I was doing, no plan. I had just followed the traditional path. Everyone else I graduated with went straight into grad school or consulting, and I was just without. It was the most humiliating break for me when I realized that I really had no idea what to do next. And instead of going for the comfort of staying on that path and just kind of going for more school because I knew I was good at that, I leaned in, went to work in a grocery store with my Stanford degree, and found a little room under the stairs in a crappy apartment with some guys I met on Craigslist and started over. So that was actually where my deconditioning started at 21. And really, I've been forging my own strange path ever since then. While I was at the grocery store, just getting enough of a paycheck to afford the rent on my room, I was like, okay, well, what if I let go of all of these structures and just let go of institutions altogether, and it's just me here? Then what do I love? What do I do with my time? And yeah, one thing I just absolutely love is yoga and journaling, which we'll get into that. So I decided, well, what if I could work in fitness? I know I'm good at taking tests, so I bought the book for personal trainers to get certified through the American Council on Exercise. And let me just say, this is the last thing I would have imagined being
Yeah.
at Stanford and thinking of myself as quite erudite, quite sophisticated intellectual. Instead, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go work in a gym. I,
Wow.
studied up, learned anatomy, got my personal training license, and yeah, I was working at Bally's. I was working at the Club of Mountain View because I was still there in Silicon Valley, and got trained because there was no yoga certification at this time. We're talking 2001. So there wasn't even anything official. So I figured, okay, now I know the anatomy. I'm not going to hurt anybody. and I can do some weekend trainings and like bit by bit built up enough knowledge to start offering yoga and then Pilates. And that was my career for 3 years. And so
Wow.
when I came to, I'm now in Bloomington, Indiana. I came here with he was then my boyfriend, now my husband of 21 years. So he had a postdoc that took us here. And when I arrived, I was working for the division of group exercise. So I was teaching like step aerobics, and I was helping
Ooh.
eventually to manage the group exercise program and then to manage the strength and conditioning program, like running the gym. So that was where that process began. And it's just so ironic because when I was working there, they had a little magazine, and I desperately wanted to write for the magazine because that's, I
Mm.
wrote for the student newspaper at Stanford. I've writing is my passion. They wouldn't let me.
Hmm.
And what is so funny about this is like fast forward, I wound up with, 10 years as a freelance writer doing all kinds of magazine writing, and I'll get into that, and then another 10 years working with faculty, helping them improve their writing. And the woman who led recreational sports, I ran into her one day in a cafe, and it was the most satisfying thing, Ishita, because she said to me, "What an opportunity we missed with you."
Oof. I have goosebumps.
Yeah, so that was nice that that all came full circle. But yeah, it's been a very circuitous, individualized, bizarre route where I really wanted to be involved with research and discovery, but did not want the constraints of the academic environment. And I found a way to do it by supporting faculty members and research teams, helping them
Right.
communicate with each other and with decision makers like funders, policymakers, the general public.
That's really beautiful. I think what you mentioned about like, this like moment of the structures just falling away, like oof, I think that is so relatable for me as well because in my journey, like right after I graduated from UCLA, like I had no idea what to do. Like the pandemic was going on, everything was just falling apart, and I was like, what do I do with this degree? Like, what did it actually teach me, about life? So I love that you took this opportunity as, okay, let me start over, let me recondition myself into who I want to be and who the real me is rather than just following the footsteps of people before you or your family or anyone.
It was so
Really, like that
empowering.
is so important. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there is so much power in the cringe, right? There's so much power in the like shame even because
Yeah.
I had to move through that. There were all these expectations, right? My own, my
Mhm.
family's, and to just completely lean in to just like catastrophic failure. It was incredible because then, yeah, then I was free. I was free to do exactly what I wanted, and I've been enjoying myself ever since.
Right, exactly. And that's the point of life, no? Like enjoying yourself, like having fun and feeling free. Like we have choices and we can take those choices.
Agreed.
Amazing.
Yes, and like from that point, I'm able to engage in projects that matter to me, and I've been involved in, really large scale everything from developing sanitation technology for areas without electricity or sewer systems, to figuring out smarter ways to determine the toxicity of industrial chemicals. So I did wind up being able to be involved in these really high level projects that I care about, but I've done it, in this
In
unusual
your
way.
own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the way that works for you. Exactly. And you made it work, which is really beautiful. And I guess my next question for you is how has journaling played a role in all of these decisions that you've made?
Ooh, thank you for asking that. So I started journaling as, an 11-year-old at like this sort of low point in my emotional life, things not going well at home at all. And I'm one of the few who kept at it. So I never stopped. I've got, 35 years of journals, which I'm now processing, by the way. That's an interesting thing. I've been going through and harvesting passages and then shredding the rest, which is a really cathartic experience.
Yeah.
Journaling for me at that time was very much about having a space in which everything was allowed, everything was accepted. I wonder if you heard this because I know quite a lot of us heard when we were young, you're too sensitive.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes. So I
totally.
got that all the time. And this was a space where there was no such critique. Everything was welcome. Everything I was feeling was valid. And it supported me through all of that adolescent development. And it was kind of my toxic waste dump initially, which is why I'm trying
I
to
love
shred
it.
everything.
Yeah.
But as I've grown and matured and healed, now it's much more of a playground. The journal is where I go to imagine and experiment.
Oof.
Yeah, but it's definitely supported my writing career. Being in the habit of writing, for one thing. I'm not afraid of a blank page because I'm used to it. I've developed my voice. And because I read my journals, I'm also able to notice habits of thought in addition to habits of craft. So I can't say enough good things about journaling. I've been teaching journaling as well for the last few years, and that is just such a joy. So I define journaling, I should give you this. I define journaling as writing for your eyes only.
Mm,
So what's interesting is that most people do write for their eyes only. It's just that they only do it in a planning sense. So they'll
yeah.
have like a calendar or a to-do list. And the issue with that is that the only way you're communicating with yourself through writing is like bossing yourself around.
It's like
So
a
you
control structure.
yes, yes. So it's
Mm,
always, do more and accomplish more and you're not getting enough done and then there's no response of like, okay, here are my notes from the ground. Here's how it actually felt. Here's how it went.
yeah.
Here's some feedback on that plan. So the journaling that I'm teaching, I think, is the complement to that planning process. It's so that, the one who actually lives and experiences it gets to give
Right.
feedback to the big boss.
No, that's really interesting because, like yesterday or well, most nights when I'm like winding down my day, I crave my journal because I want to like let her know what happened during the day, how I felt, all the celebration, all the, I don't know, invisible walls that I, was able to break or the walls which I wasn't able to break. It's kind of like this space where I just feel so heard and seen and not judged.
That's so beautiful.
Right? And I think that is the beauty of journaling, and it's beautiful that that's what you're also propagating now.
So you crave your journal and your journal craves you, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, yeah,
How did
yeah.
you
And I
get
have
started?
stickers. Sorry?
How did you get started? I'm curious. How did you get started journaling?
Yeah, I think I was just like a really like, antsy teen with lots of like angst. And I was like, where do I put this? I'm so annoyed at everything, and the systems suck, and everything is so shitty. So I started just, I don't know, writing. And I still remember my first ever journal was this little, like, very tiny journal with like these ladybugs on it. And it had a little lock and key, so it's safe. So that's where I started journaling, and from there, I don't know, like in my journals, I've created frameworks, I've created my own little worlds, I've started books, I've done so much, and it all just started from a little drop of an idea or a little drop of pain, even sometimes.
Yes, a little drop of pain. I was just writing yesterday in the journal, like, pain is my best friend, right? It's
Mm,
it's always there with you, giving you
yeah,
feedback, giving you information.
exactly. Feedback. I love that. That's so, so beautiful. So, Elizabeth, talking about writing, I would love to know a little bit more about your book, 50 Ways to Say No. And how does
Yeah.
that kind of, how do you talk about boundaries and how do you look at boundaries yourself?
Mm. So the book, it's a little guidebook. You could read it in an hour because it's literally what it says. It's 50 phrases and when to use them. And it was a little pandemic project because I kept seeing, so as you know, I work primarily with academics, and particularly women have a tendency to not want to disappoint anybody, want to be seen as a team player, want to contribute, and so they will say yes and they will take on more and more and more. And there can even be this sense that I'm not allowed to say no, or that if there's any possible way I can fit this in, it's my duty. And it was so painful to see the most generous, kind hearted people unable to pursue their own priorities because they
Yeah.
kept saying yes to everyone else. And so, one job I had for a while was working with the provost at Indiana University at the our Bloomington campus. I'm here in Bloomington, Indiana. And I was her communications specialist for about a year. And one of my jobs was to decline requests on her behalf, right? So I'm writing in her voice. She's been asked to do something. It doesn't, fit with the priorities. So I had to craft a response that would preserve the relationship, show her appreciation, and yet keep her schedule sane. And I kept thinking, like, why doesn't everyone have these skills? Right? This is
Yeah.
vital. So that's what the book is. It's me trying to share what I used professionally and what I use in my own life. So a lot of the time I think people just don't have the language, right? Even if no feels unapproachable, there's so many other ways to word it. And I have these categories in the book, everything from when you want to say yes, to when you feel emotionally pressured. There's also saying no to yourself. So I'll give you a couple that I love to share. So first one, please, if you get nothing else from this conversation, take this home. Let me think on it and get back to you. Always, 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 even if you are 100% sure you're going to say yes, make that your habit, that you always leave the conversation with your options open. Let me think on it and get back to you. Because no reasonable person is going to protest that unless it's a true emergency, right? So, what you're saying is, let me give this the consideration it deserves. It's a respectful thing to do.
Yeah.
And then you're able to get away from that high pressure encounter. You're able to sleep on it, talk with the other people who would be affected by your decision. So even if what you do is you come back every time and say, yes, I'll do it, you've still claimed your own agency. So let me think on it and
Beautiful.
get back to you every time. And then the
I
other
love
one I
that.
love to share is just your blanket, I'm sorry, I'm not available. Or, right? You don't have to explain. I have a whole theory on this around like who is owed an explanation, and essentially like unless someone is part of your inner circle, like they're
Exactly.
actively
Mhm.
supporting you emotionally, you do not need to explain. I'm sorry, I'm not
Exactly.
available. Yeah. So take
Yeah.
those.
And this, I love that. And the idea of we don't owe anyone anything, you know? Because I don't know, there's like this inbuilt sense of responsibility in some of us who are highly sensitive or who are highly like intelligent, even, where we feel like, oh yeah, I need to tell this person exactly why I said no or help them in some way, even because I'm declining them. And it's like, no, not really. It's not my job, you know? So
Yeah,
I love
it can be
that,
tough.
just we don't owe anyone anything.
So do you have you encountered any resistance in yourself to being able to say no?
Oh yeah, totally. I think especially when I was younger, I think maybe it was my conditioning, maybe it was my need to be, socially accepted, where I used to just say yes to a lot of like plans and with family or with friends, and I was like, yeah, yeah, let's do it, like parties, let's do it, or like this outing about something I really don't care about, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I just realized it was draining my energy. Every time I said yes, it was I was saying no to myself, you
Oh, that's
know?
powerful.
Yeah, and there came a day where I was like, you know what? I'm tired of doing this. This is like no one cares if I go or not go, it's not that big of a deal. most of these people are too busy thinking about themselves, like why am I wasting my time and energy? Like, I'd much rather be reading or, doing something more fulfilling for myself. And that's when I just started saying yes to myself first and just really very consciously choosing the things that I said no to as well as yes to. And I think that's really led me, towards places which respect my energy and places that I enjoy also now. Yeah.
What is your process for determining if it's a yes or a no?
Hmm. I think I just honestly listen to my intuition. Like
Mm,
my body will tell me. Like when someone invites me, I always say, "Okay, yeah, I'll see, the thing that you said. Like let me think about it, I'll let you know." But really like my body in that moment just gives me like a very obvious signal that yes, like the energy goes upwards, then it's like a yes. And if the energy goes downwards and like pools up in my belly, then I'm like, oh yeah, this is a draining, like I don't think I'm gonna enjoy this. So I just listen to
oh, you
that.
just said that. Yeah. That's super. Yes, and that's so I have a boundaries boot camp, which hopefully I'll get to share in the butterfly. And that's exactly what I show. I love how you're describing the energy going up or down. I have a little like a yes no meter, which is your heart. It's just you can feel it. It either goes yes or it goes no. But sometimes you can't hear it in the presence of someone who wants something from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which is why you say, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
And then you think about it, and you take that time to check in with your meter.
Right?
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
And I love what you're saying about the body answering. You've probably seen this as well. There's been studies on if you suppress it's like the intuitive part of your brain, you can't make any decisions. We don't actually make
Mm-hmm.
decisions with cognition.
No,
We make our decisions, from a deeper place. And being able to hear that signal is going to drive you towards, much better choices that align with where you want to
exactly.
go. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, our logical mind wants to give the answer to why we shouldn't or should do something, but really that's just the fluff, like the answer really comes from within the body, and then the mind tries to like explain why or reason with it, which is really like I don't know if it's really useful, like most of the times I don't think it is.
I think we have this reflexive yes because we're social creatures, right? So reflexively, if somebody is asking us for something, we will say yes, and then the brain will come up with a reason. So we'll say, "Oh, it's because I want to be helpful. It's because
Yeah.
I want to be part of a team." But it's actually just justifying that desire to be liked, right? That desire
Hmm.
for approval. And if we can short circuit that and ask the question of, okay, well, if it's true that I want to be part of a team, is this the best way to do it?
Exactly.
Or is there another way that I could actually be contributing that would be more beneficial for everybody? Yeah.
I
So
love
so the
that.
strategic no over the reflexive yes.
Exactly. I really love that. And this is why, Elizabeth, I'm so excited for the workshop you'll be hosting with us for the butterfly. Like, yeah, so all the course participants of the butterfly are going to get an exclusive like workshop with Elizabeth where she is going to teach you how to like be cutthroat and say your no with confidence, really clarifying inside of your body. And
Yeah.
I'm honestly very excited for this workshop personally. So
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah, oh, it's so funny because well, it's cutthroat in a certain sense. It's also the most generous thing you can do because if you're just giving away your time indiscriminately,
Hmm.
you're actually not making the contribution you want to make.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Elizabeth, my last question to you is what is your spirit animal and why?
So I am so ready for this because can you see
Oh
her?
my gosh! Yeah, I
Okay.
do.
This is my anglerfish. So
Wow.
she is down in the deep dark, but she makes her own light and attracts resources to her. So
Beautiful.
that is my spirit animal. I like to think of how we can actually be nourished by the dark. And I think a lot of people think of Finding Nemo, but that's not where it came from. If there are any nerds on here who used to watch Homestar Runner, that's actually the inspiration, the deep sea fangly fish. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's the females that have the lures,
Interesting. Makes sense, right? Because the feminine
right?
energy is it like receives, right? Instead of like
Exactly.
acting.
Yeah, I've been
That's
trying to lean into
beautiful.
that the last few years.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I love that, Elizabeth. And wow, thank you so much for this super exciting and energizing conversation today. And for all of our listeners, I'm going to pop links on how to connect with Elizabeth or look into her book, and as well as links to join the butterfly course so you can also receive some wisdom from Elizabeth. And yeah, thank you so much for being on here. And we're super, super excited to continue the conversation with a lot more creative change makers like you.
Wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity. It's great to talk with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, everyone.